By 1915, Europe realized something uncomfortable. This wasn't going to be a quick land grab. This was going to be a grind. Trenches stretched for hundreds of miles. Generals kept promising breakthroughs, and instead, they got mud, gas, and body counts. So both sides thought, fine, if we can't win here, let's try somewhere else. Yeah, that didn't fix it. Welcome to Capital Misfires. I'm Jimmy, and this is the phase of World War I where everyone tried to outsmart a stalemate and mostly just made it bigger. Stick with me. With the Western Front locked in place, war shifted outward. The Allies controlled massive overseas empires. That meant manpower from India, Canada, Australia, Africa. The British also tightened a naval blockade around Germany, choking off imports, including food. It wasn't flashy, but it was brutal. Germany knew this wasn't sustainable, so both sides searched for what we'd call today a workaround. Idea number one: open new fronts. Australia quickly seized German New Guinea. Allied forces targeted German colonies in Africa. In places like German East Africa, local populations were pulled into the war as soldiers and porters and paid the highest price. Meanwhile, new players stepped in. Japan joined the Allies and moved fast to grab German holdings in East Asia. No hesitation there. Italy? That one's interesting. Italy had technically been aligned with Germany and Austria-Hungary before the war, but after some tense negotiations and promises of Austrian territory, Italy switched teams and opened a mountain front against Austria-Hungary. And guess what? They got stuck too. Same stalemate, just more bodies. Then came the Ottomans. The Ottoman Empire was exhausted from recent Balkan conflicts. Many leaders hesitated to join, but a faction inside the government basically forced the issue, launching attacks on Russia and then saying, well, I guess we're in now. Not exactly a cautious entry strategy. The Middle East suddenly mattered a lot, especially to Britain, which had serious interest in regional oil. The Ottomans tried attacking Russia in the Caucasus. Disaster. Freezing conditions wiped out tens of thousands. They tried crossing desert to seize the Suez Canal. Failed. Then, the Allies attempted to force the Dardanelles at Gallipoli. Months of brutal trench warfare. Also failed. So now you had multiple fronts and no real advantage. And then, something darker happened. Ottoman authorities blamed ethnic Armenians for early setbacks, leading to the Armenian Genocide, where around 1.5 million people were killed. A tragic reminder: when systems crack, civilians suffer first. Meanwhile, Germany even sent agents into Afghanistan, hoping to stir anti-British revolt in India. That plan fizzled out too. New fronts, new suffering, same stalemate. And that's when Germany decided to escalate. If this war wasn't going to be quick, they were about to make it ugly. By this point, Germany understood something clearly. The Allies had more men, more resources, and, thanks to the British blockade, more food. Time wasn't neutral. Time favored the Allies. So Berlin made a decision. Before the war, international agreements had set boundaries. No chemical weapons, no targeting civilians. Basic don't be monsters rules of modern warfare. Germany looked at the stalemate and chose escalation. Zeppelins began bombing British cities from the sky, a new kind of fear. Civilians were no longer spectators. On the Western Front, chlorine gas rolled across trenches. Soldiers weren't prepared. Lungs burned. Panic spread. And then came submarines. German U-boats started sinking ships supplying Britain, including civilian vessels. One of them was the Lusitania, carrying 159 Americans when it was torpedoed. That mattered. Public opinion in the United States didn't flip overnight, but it tilted. To be fair, and history demands that, the Allies weren't saints either. They developed and used chemical weapons soon after, and some British civilian ships carried hidden anti-submarine weapons, giving Germany justification in their own eyes. Still, escalation had begun, and escalation spreads. Meanwhile, Austria-Hungary still hadn't dealt with Serbia, the original spark.
So the Central Powers brought in Bulgaria, a nation still bitter after the Balkan Wars and eager for territorial gains. Promises were made. Bulgaria joined. Serbia was overwhelmed. Serbian troops retreated through Albania, a brutal march where many died before evacuation by sea. By 1916, the war machine was accelerating. Germany even declared war on Portugal after tensions rose over colonial and shipping disputes. At sea, both Britain and Germany had built massive new battleships called dreadnoughts. They were expensive, powerful, and too valuable to risk. One major naval clash damaged ships on both sides, but neither achieved decisive control. After that, caution ruled the seas. On land, caution disappeared. The Germans launched a massive offensive at Verdun. The goal wasn't just territory, it was to bleed France dry. Verdun became one of the longest and bloodiest battles in history, hundreds of thousands of casualties. France called for relief. The British answered with the Battle of the Somme. On the first day alone, around 60,000 British casualties, and the line barely moved. And here's something wild. This is where the British introduced tanks for the first time. Early models, slow, unreliable, but the future of warfare had just rolled onto the battlefield. Russia tried to relieve pressure with a large offensive. It worked until supplies ran out. Romania saw opportunity and joined the Allies. It didn't go well. Greece split internally over which side to support, king versus prime minister, until the king abdicated and Greece joined the Allies. Everywhere you looked, more participants, more pressure. And still, no clear winner. By 1917, the cracks weren't just in the trenches, they were inside entire countries, and one of them was about to break. By 1917, everyone was exhausted. France had mutinies in its army. German civilians were starving under blockade. Russia was running out of food, weapons, and patience. This wasn't just a battlefield crisis anymore. It was a system-wide failure. In Russia, unrest exploded in Petrograd. Food shortages triggered riots. Strikes spread. The Tsar lost control. A new government stepped in. Then, months later, the Bolsheviks overthrew that government too. Russia pulled out of the war. For Germany, this was huge. No more Eastern Front, no more fighting on two sides. Finally, focus everything west. But there was one growing problem: the United States. America had stayed officially neutral, but it was selling massive supplies to the Allies. The US economy was booming, fresh, industrial, untouched by trench warfare. Germany knew if American troops arrived in full force, the math would flip permanently. So Berlin made another risky move. They sent a telegram to Mexico proposing an alliance, suggesting Mexico attack the United States in exchange for lost territory. The British intercepted it. They handed it to Washington. That was it. American public opinion snapped. US troops began mobilizing for Europe. And now Germany faced a brutal reality: win fast or lose slowly. In 1918, Germany launched one final massive offensive on the Western Front. They hit hard near the Somme, then again in the north, then again. At first, it worked. The Allies were pushed back, gains were made, but every attack drained German reserves, while American troops were arriving in increasing numbers. Fresh manpower, fresh supplies. By the fifth major push, the Allies held. Then they pushed back. Now the Central Powers began collapsing one by one. Bulgaria fell first, then the Ottoman Empire. Austria-Hungary fractured under internal pressure. And finally, on November 11, 1918, at 11 a.m., Germany agreed to an armistice. The guns stopped. At the peace negotiations, Germany was forced to reduce its military, accept responsibility for the war, and pay massive reparations. After millions dead, an entire region shattered, the world promised itself, never again. Yeah, about 20 years later, we'll be right back here. This is Capital Misfires. I'm Jimmy, and this was what happens when alliances, pride, and momentum outrun common sense. If you made it this far, you already know, history doesn't explode overnight. It compounds. And sometimes, it misfires.